If Niccolò Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't waste words on social media or sell self-help courses. He wouldn't be posting threads or hustling for followers. He'd be the ghost in the machine, the silent architect of empires. In a world obsessed with exposure, his genius would be in invisibility. And that's exactly what we'll uncover. 21 psychological laws of control, not based on quotes or history alone, but on what Machiavelli would do if he played in our world of corporations, politics, and endless noise. Power today doesn't belong to the loud. It belongs to the unseen hand that guides the loud. These are his laws, rewritten for the present. Rule 1. Be underestimated on purpose. Machiavelli understood that the greatest advantage is not in being feared or admired too soon, but in being dismissed. In a world where everyone rushes to prove themselves, to wave titles and speak loudly so no one forgets them, the true strategist does the opposite. He enters last, speaks little, and lets the room believe he is harmless. Underestimation is not weakness. It is cover. Predators know this instinctively. The lion does not roar before the kill. The snake does not rattle until it strikes. Power is safest when it wears the mask of insignificance. History and business both prove it. Warren Buffett once walked into Wall Street looking like nothing more than a quiet Midwestern man in an old suit. No one feared him. Few even noticed him, until the numbers revealed he had already bought half the boardroom. By the time they realized, he was untouchable. That is the essence of this law. Let them see smallness. Let them mistake silence for softness. Let them think you pose no threat. Because when they are comfortable enough to drop their guard, you can move without resistance, and the blow will always land harder when it comes from a place they never prepared for. Rule 2. Charm cuts deeper than truth. Charm has always outweighed truth, because men do not follow reality. They follow appearances. Machiavelli would not waste time proving his integrity in a world drunk on image. He would polish the mask until it gleamed so brightly no one cared to look behind it. Perception is the currency that buys obedience, and the one who masters it can bend others without lifting a sword. Truth is heavy, slow, and often unwelcome, but charm moves like smoke, slipping into the cracks of doubt and disarming suspicion before it can rise. Look at politics, at business, at the faces that dominate screens. Rarely the most honest, almost always the most persuasive. Consider the salesman who smiles too wide, makes you feel special, and tells you what you needed to hear. By the time you see the flaws in his product, you've already signed the contract. That is the Machiavellian tactic. Let them believe you are good. Let them crown you noble. And while they celebrate the illusion, you quietly redraw the map in your favor. Honesty binds you, but charm frees you, and freedom is the soil in which power takes root. Rule 3. Confusion is a crown. Most people fight to be understood, but Machiavelli would choose to be unreadable. When you are clear, you are predictable. And when you are predictable, you are controllable. But when you are clouded, shifting, sometimes warm and sometimes cold, you pull others into orbit. They spend nights analyzing words you never explained, replaying silences you never filled, and interpreting gestures you never clarified. That is the power of ambiguity. It makes you larger than life, because the mystery grows in the minds of others. Think of the artist who refuses interviews, or the executive who never explains his decisions. His absence of clarity creates obsession. Even in relationships, the one who cannot be fully defined becomes the one who is chased. People hate confusion, but they cannot resist it. The brain demands closure, and when closure never comes, they stay hooked. Machiavelli would exploit this flaw ruthlessly, not to appear weak or indecisive, but to make others believe he is deeper than they can reach. He would smile when questioned, refuse to clarify, and let the silence grow heavy. Because once curiosity takes root, it becomes fixation, and fixation is the purest form of control. Rule 4. Show the surface, hide the core. In a time where everyone broadcasts their every move, Machiavelli would move like a shadow. He would give the world just enough to watch, but never enough to understand. Because the moment people see your process, they begin to prepare against you. They counter, they block, they sabotage. But when they see only the outcome, they cannot touch the machinery behind it. Modern life worships transparency, yet transparency is the quickest way to be cornered. A wise ruler knows to separate what is displayed from what is real. Let the mask be public. Let the engine be private. Think of Apple under Steve Jobs. The world saw polished keynotes, sleek products, and a story of creativity. But the ruthless decisions, the discarded prototypes, the brutal boardroom battles, those were hidden, and that secrecy made the brand untouchable. Machiavelli would advise the same. Let them assume you are slow while you move quickly. Let them believe you are resting while you advance in silence. Control the feed, but guard the factory. Because when your enemies only see the reflection, they can never strike at the source. Rule 5. The mask must crack. Perfection is forgettable. What grips the human mind is the glimpse of something hidden, the moment the mask slips. Machiavelli would build a flawless surface, composed, intelligent, unshakable, but only to fracture it on purpose. One sharp word in the middle of calm, one sudden revelation of pain, one burst of unexpected insight, and the illusion deepens. Because people do not obsess over what they understand completely. They obsess over the part they can't quite reach. Give them 90% of the story and withhold the last 10, and they will chase it endlessly. Think of celebrities whose carefully managed images crack just once. A leaked letter, a raw confession, and suddenly, the world cannot stop dissecting them. Or imagine the calm leader who shows rare, controlled anger. The team spends weeks wondering what lies beneath that composure. That is the trick. To let the mask shine, then let it fracture, not by accident, but with precision. Be the light, then reveal a flash of darkness. Let them see a shadow behind the curtain, then close it quickly. They will never be satisfied until they know what is behind it, and that hunger will make you unforgettable. Rule 6. Fewer words, sharper blades. Power is not measured by how much you say, but by how little you must speak to be obeyed. Those who talk endlessly reveal their hunger for validation, their fear of being misunderstood, their desperation to be liked. But the one who speaks with precision and then stops commands the air itself. Machiavelli would never argue to be understood. He would speak to unsettle. Words, for him, were not blankets to comfort, but knives to cut. A single sentence can wound deeper than a speech, and silence after a sentence can be more terrifying than threats. Think of a negotiation where one man lists demands, justifying and explaining, while the other leans back, says one line, and falls silent. The silence grows heavy. The first man keeps talking, and in his own flood of words he reveals his weakness. Even in ordinary life, The one who answers with a pause instead of an explanation forces others to imagine motives, to fill the emptiness with their own fears. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. Mystery is forged not in what you say, but in what you refuse to say. Rule 7. Keep them guessing who you are. People crave certainty. They want to know who is safe, who is dangerous, who stands with them, and who stands against them. Machiavelli would never grant them that peace. He would smile at rivals, praise enemies, and sit comfortably beside those he planned to outmaneuver. Because once people believe you are a threat, they sharpen their blades. But if they are lulled into thinking you are neutral, they fall asleep. And the best time to strike is always when your opponents are dreaming. The fox survives by spotting traps. The lion survives by frightening wolves. But true mastery is to appear as neither. Sometimes the fox, sometimes the lion, and sometimes nothing at all. Think of a corporate setting where a quiet executive applauds a colleague's idea, only to replace him months later without a fight. The man never saw the move coming because he never thought he was facing an enemy. That is the essence of this law. Blur the lines. Leave them uncertain. Be warm until the moment you turn cold. Be supportive until your absence breaks them. If they cannot decide whether you are friend or foe, they will never prepare properly, and that hesitation is your weapon. Rule 8. Safety before the strike. The easiest way to disarm someone is not to fight them, but to make them believe you never intended to. Machiavelli would slip into their trust like water, study their habits, mirror their language, agree when it cost him nothing, and praise them until they saw him as an ally. Then, when their guard was lowest, he would act swiftly and without warning. Betrayal feels sharpest when it arrives dressed as friendship. Think of the politician who builds alliances by nodding to every proposal, appearing harmless, even helpful, until the crucial vote comes, and he shifts the balance in his favor. By then, his rivals are not ready for battle. They are stunned, betrayed, and powerless. Or consider the colleague who spends months supporting your project, offering advice, even defending you, only to take the position you wanted once you relax. That is the tactic. Soothe them with safety. Let them believe they are guiding you. Then remove them in a single clean move. People obey their immediate needs, and their greatest need is to feel secure. Give them that comfort. Then take what they never thought they needed to protect. Rule 9. Teach them to lean, then step away. Machiavelli would never rush to dominate by force. He would make himself useful, solve the problem no one else could, offer the guidance no one else dared, provide the stability others lacked. Slowly, without notice, people would begin to lean on him. And once they lean, dependence takes root. That is when the trap is complete. Because nothing is more devastating than the sudden removal of what you thought was permanent. Imagine a mentor in the workplace who quietly steers a young executive through crisis after crisis, becoming the one voice that cuts through the noise. Then, without anger, without explanation, he withdraws. The young executive is left exposed, stripped of confidence, haunted by the absence of the one hand that steadied him. Or think of a relationship where one partner becomes the source of calm, of answers, of comfort, until that calm disappears. The void is unbearable. Machiavelli understood this cruelty of absence. People do not suffer from what they never had. They suffer from losing what they depended on. To control someone, make them believe you are necessary. To make them remember you forever. Leave when they need you most. Rule 10. The chain of favors. Most people give help to be liked. Machiavelli would give help to own you. A favor is never free. It hangs in the air like an unpaid debt, and the longer it lingers, the heavier it becomes. He would not demand repayment with force. He would let the imbalance gnaw at you until you repaid him in loyalty, in silence, in obedience. Think of the colleague who saves your project at the last moment. He never mentions it, never asks for credit. Yet every time you speak in meetings, you feel the shadow of what he did for you. You begin to defer to him, to support him, to protect him, because you owe him. Or consider the neighbor who lends money in a crisis and then smiles when you thank him. He does not ask for it back, not immediately, but you never forget that he could. That is the weight of a favor. It sits in the mind like a stone, and the longer it is unacknowledged, the more it bends your posture. Machiavelli would never give gifts to be admired. He would give them to build chains invisible to the eye, but unbreakable to the soul. Rule 11. Loyalty, born of betrayal. People think loyalty comes from kindness, but Machiavelli knew the opposite. True loyalty comes when someone compromises themselves for you. He would never demand betrayal. He would simply leave the door open and let others walk through it. A careless word shared in confidence, a small secret slipped in your favor, a harmless criticism of a friend made to win your approval. Each act ties them closer to you, because once they betray someone else for your sake, they cannot untangle themselves without exposing their own weakness. Imagine an employee who tells a manager something damaging about a colleague. He was not forced, he chose to share it. Now he is bound, because to walk away would be to admit disloyalty twice, first to his colleague and then to you. Or think of a partner who whispers doubts about a friend to gain your affection. The betrayal may be small, but the guilt makes them invest deeper, protecting you as a way of protecting themselves. Machiavelli would build alliances not on admiration, but on complicity. People will defend the good out of love, but they will defend the guilty out of fear of their own exposure, and that bond is far stronger. Rule 12. Rot the alliance from within. Machiavelli would never waste strength attacking a group head-on. He knew that alliances collapse more easily from whispers than from weapons. To destroy a bond, you do not strike the chain, you rust it. You plant suspicion, the smallest seed of doubt, and then step back while it grows. One quiet suggestion. Have you noticed she never really defends you? Can fracture years of trust. You do not accuse, you do not insist, you only hint, and their own minds do the labor of destruction. Picture an office team bound tightly around a project. Instead of confronting them, one member sows unease, a raised eyebrow when credit is given, a casual remark that someone seems distant. Within weeks, the laughter fades, private conversations form, and unity thins into cracks. Or think of politics, where no scandal wounds as deeply as the suggestion of disloyalty. Once suspicion enters, allies begin to watch each other instead of their enemies, and the alliance collapses without a single direct blow. Machiavelli would smile at the chaos, because he knew a truth as old as power itself. When trust dies inside a circle, the circle destroys itself. Rule 13. Mirror their weakness. If you want someone to follow you without question, you do not need to command them. You only need to reflect their own insecurities back to them. Machiavelli understood that people crave to feel seen, especially in their wounds. A sharp insult makes them defensive, but a soft acknowledgement of their hidden doubt binds them to you. A quiet remark, "You've done well," especially for someone who isn't always taken seriously, feels like kindness, but it confirms the fear they already carry. Once you position yourself as the one who understands their weakness, you become the voice they trust most. Imagine a manager who tells a young employee, "You always manage to pull through, even when people doubt you." The employee hears encouragement, but also a reminder of his fragility. He starts leaning on the manager for reassurance, drifting under his gravity. Or think of a lover who says, "I admire your confidence, even though it doesn't always show." The words sting, but they also comfort. In that paradox, attachment forms. Machiavelli would wield this technique with precision, because threats build walls, but insecurities open doors. And once you are inside that door, you are the one they cannot push out. Rule 14. Keep your hands clean. Every removal, every betrayal, every ruthless act leaves a stain. Machiavelli knew the secret was never to carry the knife yourself. Let others swing it. Let circumstance take the blame. Let your enemies destroy themselves while you remain untouched. The most dangerous ruler is the one who orchestrates outcomes, but appears innocent of them. Picture a workplace where a leader never fires anyone directly. Instead, he whispers doubts to the board, lets mistakes pile up, and when the axe finally falls, it seems inevitable. He remains above the bloodshed, while others do the cutting. Or think of politics, where rivals collapse under scandals not directly created, but carefully exposed by unseen hands. By the time the dust settles, no one can prove who started the fire. That is the Machiavellian masterpiece: to pull strings yet appear uninvolved, to profit from the fall while standing clean at the edge. Because the executioner earns enemies, but the survivor of chaos earns followers. And in the silence of suspicion, the one with unstained hands becomes the only safe alternative. Rule 15. Silence makes them speak. The most powerful voice in any room is not the loudest. It is the one that says nothing. Machiavelli would sit still while others spilled their secrets, because silence is not weakness. It is a mirror that forces others to reveal themselves. When you do not answer an insult, the insulter grows restless and keeps talking until his mask slips. When you refuse to share your opinion, others fill the void with their own doubts, showing their fears without realizing it. Imagine a negotiation. One man lists terms, argues, insists. The other leans back, says one line, and then falls silent. Soon the first man is bargaining with himself, lowering his own price just to escape the weight of the quiet. Or picture a personal quarrel where one side rages and the other side only blinks, calm and wordless. The rage collapses under its own noise. Silence is not absence. It is pressure. It makes others wonder what you know, what you plan, what you might do. Machiavelli would wield it like a blade wrapped in velvet, cutting deeper than any argument, because the imagination of others will always wound them more than your words ever could. Rule 16. The fear of the unreadable. Predictability is a leash, and Machiavelli would never wear it. He would not act randomly, that is weakness, but he would act unpredictably at decisive moments. When people know your rhythm, they learn how to control you. If they know you always answer the call, they dictate your time. If they know you always forgive, they push further. If they know you never retaliate, they step harder. But when you sometimes forgive and sometimes vanish, sometimes respond and sometimes let silence linger, they begin to hesitate. They do not know which version of you will arrive, and that hesitation is power. Think of the coach who praises the team 1 week and then withdraws into icy silence the next. Players sharpen their focus because they cannot predict what he will do. Or picture a business rival who sometimes agrees, sometimes blocks, sometimes disappears altogether. His unpredictability keeps competitors from forming a strategy, because strategy requires certainty. Machiavelli knew that men are driven by love or fear, but fear thrives on uncertainty. The one who cannot be read is the one who cannot be prepared for, and the unprepared are always the first to fall. Rule 17. The shadow that stays. Power is not only in presence. The greatest power is when your presence lingers after you are gone. Machiavelli would not aim merely to be noticed in the moment. He would aim to be remembered in every decision, every hesitation, every whispered doubt. Influence becomes permanent when people measure themselves against you, even in your absence. Imagine the manager whose calm, precise corrections still echo in a team's mind long after he has left the company. They pause before acting, asking silently, "What would he have said?" Or the former lover whose silence haunts every new relationship because no one else carries the same weight. This is not reputation. It is imprint. It is a brand burned into the nervous system. Machiavelli would achieve it by moving deliberately while present, measured, surgical, unshaken, so that when he departs, the memory of that control governs the room. Presence fades quickly. Imprint endures. The true ruler does not need to return to enforce his laws. His shadow does the work for him. Rule 18. Let fear speak for you. A threat voiced aloud is a weapon dulled. Machiavelli knew that once you declare what you will do, your enemy begins to prepare. Far more powerful is the silence that leaves them guessing. He would never say, "I will destroy you." He would let the possibility hang in the air until it grew larger than any words could. Fear born from imagination is always heavier than fear born from facts. Picture a workplace where a superior doesn't scold mistakes, only pauses, watching with a calm expression. The employee, unsure of what is coming, loses sleep replaying the silence. Or consider a rival who boasts and blusters, while you respond with nothing but a faint smile. Soon he wonders what you know, who you've spoken to, what quiet move you are making. His own anxiety becomes your ally. Machiavelli understood this law deeply. The mind will torture itself with possibilities far worse than anything you could say. Let them build their own nightmare. Let their imagination tighten the chains. Because once fear begins speaking in their head, you no longer need to. Rule 19. The patience of revenge. Quick retaliation satisfies anger, but wastes power. Machiavelli would never answer insult with immediacy. He would wait, observe, and let time sharpen the blade. Injuries, he knew, rot best when left unattended. The enemy begins to relax, believing the danger has passed, lowering his guard with each passing day. Then, when the strike comes, it feels not like a quarrel, but like destiny itself. Think of the executive who is publicly humiliated in a meeting. He does not protest, does not defend himself. Months later, when the offender is up for promotion, a quiet word in the right ear ensures the opportunity vanishes. the punishment lands cleaner than any outburst could have. Or picture the friend betrayed who does not storm out, but remains cordial, patient, until one day, when influence is strongest, he withdraws all support in a single decisive motion. Revenge in haste gives satisfaction to the other side. Revenge in silence gives control to you. Machiavelli's law was simple. Never let anger set the tempo. Wait until your strike is not expected, and then deliver it all at once. The blow will echo longer than any shouted threat. Rule 20. Become more than a man. Machiavelli understood the frailty of individuals. A person can be removed, replaced, forgotten. But a system, an idea woven into habits and structures, cannot be erased so easily. That is the higher form of power. Not to be admired as a name, but to be embedded as a framework others rely on. He would not seek to be liked for his charm. He would seek to be necessary for how the machine runs. Think of Henry Ford. The man is long dead, but his system of production still shapes the modern world. Remove him, and the assembly line endures. Or consider the executive who trains his team so thoroughly in his method that even after he leaves, they still make decisions as if he were in the room. That is permanence. Machiavelli would counsel you to spread your voice into the very bones of the organization, to become the unseen pattern others cannot function without. Names fade, structures endure. The ultimate goal is not to be remembered as a man, but to live on as the system they cannot abandon without collapsing. Rule 21. The name they dare not speak. The highest form of power is not recognition, but haunting. Machiavelli would not chase applause or headlines. He would cultivate an aura so heavy that people spoke of him only in fragments. His influence would linger in rooms where his name was never said, because even mentioning it would feel dangerous. Leaders would warn, "Don't make the same mistake he punished last time," without daring to name him. Rivals would whisper, "You know who I mean," and the shadow would be enough. Think of corporate boardrooms where a former CEO's presence still dictates decisions years after his departure. Policies never questioned, rules never broken, because his ghost remains in the air. Or think of a community where a man's silence after betrayal became so feared that others avoided crossing him, even though he never spoke of it. To be unspeakable is to be immortal. Fame fades. Noise is forgotten, but fear without a name endures. Machiavelli would not need to trend, because trends die. He would become the weight others carry in silence, the rule they follow, without knowing they still serve him. That is the final victory. Not to be seen, not to be heard, but to be unavoidable. Closing. The final lesson. If Machiavelli walked among us now, he would not flood the world with words. He would not fight for likes or chase the vanity of attention. He would move quietly, shaping structures, bending perception, leaving traces so faint that by the time you noticed, it was already too late. These 21 laws are not instructions for noise, but for silence, not for fame, but for permanence. Power is not in being recognized. It is in being unavoidable. The loud are admired and forgotten. The silent are feared and remembered. Machiavelli would remind us that the world is not ruled by those who shout the most, but by those who let others reveal themselves, by those who mask intent, by those who strike only once and cleanly. And when the dust settles, when enemies vanish and allies forget, only one truth remains. The greatest power is to become a presence that endures without needing to be seen.